In 2022, the world watched Qatar build air-conditioned stadiums in the desert. In 2026, North America will stretch the tournament across an entire continent. But 2034 could be something different entirely, because Saudi Arabia isn't just preparing to host matches. It's building arenas that look less like sports venues and more like megastructures pulled from a futuristic master plan. Cliff-carved stadiums suspended above entertainment cities, geometric monuments rising from brand-new urban cores, retractable roofs designed to seal in cool air while desert heat hovers outside. And while dozens of venues are planned across the country, 3 projects stand out as the ones that could define what the 2034 World Cup actually feels like. Not just where games are played, but what the tournament represents. Because by the time the first whistle blows in 2034, these stadiums won't just be hosting football, they'll be signaling something much larger. So today we're breaking down the 3 stadiums that could shape the identity of the 2034 World Cup, how they're being designed, what makes them structurally unique, and why they matter far beyond sport. And if you enjoy deep dives into the mega projects reshaping cities, economies, and global events, make sure to hit the subscribe button. If there's one stadium likely to define the 2034 World Cup, it's the King Salman International Stadium in Riyadh. This isn't a renovation, it's not an expansion. It's a purpose-built flagship venue designed to anchor the entire tournament, planned to seat more than 90,000 spectators, and with an estimated cost of $3.5 to over $5 billion. It would immediately become one of the largest football stadiums in the world. Construction of a stadium this size requires tens of thousands of workers across engineering, logistics, materials supply, and infrastructure development. For several years leading up to 2034, this won't just be a venue. It will be one of the largest active construction zones in the country. But scale alone isn't what makes it interesting. It's the design logic behind it. Instead of mimicking traditional bowl-shaped arenas, the structure is being conceived as a layered architectural system, with seating tiers wrapped inside a climate-controlled shell engineered specifically for desert conditions. And that climate question is critical. Summer temperatures in Riyadh can exceed 45 degrees Celsius or over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Even in winter months, daytime heat can be intense. So the stadium design integrates passive shading geometry, advanced cooling systems, and a partially enclosed roof intended to regulate airflow rather than simply trap it. This isn't just about comfort, it's about performance. Players cannot operate at elite levels in extreme heat. Spectators cannot sit comfortably for 90 minutes in direct desert sun. So engineering becomes part of the game day experience. Structurally, the roof system is expected to rely on a combination of steel truss spans and tensioned membrane elements, reducing weight while maximizing coverage. Large overhangs shade the upper tiers, minimizing direct solar gain. But perhaps the most strategic element isn't the building itself, it's the district around it. The stadium sits inside a broader redevelopment zone designed to become a year-round entertainment and sports hub. That means hotels, transit links, retail, and public plazas are being integrated from the beginning. In other words, this isn't just a tournament venue, it's an anchor for long-term urban development. And that pattern shows up again in the next project. If King Salman Stadium is about national scale, the Prince Mohammed Bin Salman Stadium in Jeddah is about spectacle. Because this one isn't just being built inside a city, it's being built into a cliff. Jeddah sits southwest of Riyadh inside a vast entertainment and tourism development, carved into desert escarpments. And instead of flattening the terrain to make room for a stadium, the design leans into it. The structure is embedded directly into the rock face of the Tuwaiq Mountains. That choice changes everything. Rather than a fully freestanding bowl, portions of the seating and structural support are integrated into the natural cliff geometry. The rock itself becomes part of the load-bearing system. Excavation replaces some conventional substructure work. Natural elevation reduces the amount of vertical steel required for upper tiers. But building into a cliff isn't an aesthetic decision, it's an engineering constraint. Rock stability has to be mapped in extreme detail. Load paths must account for geological variation. Drainage systems must prevent water intrusion during rare but intense desert storms. And vibration analysis becomes critical when tens of thousands of spectators move simultaneously. This alone means years of excavation crews, geotechnical specialists, and structural engineers working in phases to stabilize rock faces before a single seat is installed. The stadium is expected to seat around 45,000 fans, with a price tag probably somewhere in the $2.5 billion range, making it smaller than the Riyadh flagship, but arguably more visually distinctive. A dramatic cantilevered roof extends outward from the cliff edge, creating a hovering canopy over the pitch. Instead of enclosing the stadium entirely, the design uses shadow and overhangs to manage heat while preserving openness. And then there's the media moment. Concept renderings show the stadium suspended above a multi-level entertainment district, with LED light facades and terraces that overlook the valley below. It's less of a traditional sports venue and more of a vertical event complex. From a tournament perspective, this matters. Modern World Cups aren't just about football matches, they're global broadcast events. A stadium built into a mountain becomes an instant visual identity marker. But Qadia's stadium is also a long-term bet. After 2034, it won't rely on weekly domestic matches to survive. It's being positioned as a multi-purpose venue for concerts, esports, events, combat sports, and large-scale entertainment programming tied to the broader Qadia development. In that sense, it represents a different philosophy than older World Cup builds. Instead of constructing standalone monuments, the strategy here is integration. Sports venue as one component of a larger tourism machine. And that brings us to the third stadium, one that takes integration even further. If Qadia is about spectacle carved into rock, Roshn Stadium in Jeddah is about scale on the coast. This is the stadium designed to anchor Saudi Arabia's Red Sea presence during the 2034 World Cup. Planned with a capacity of roughly 45,000 seats and costs an estimated $2 billion, Roshn Stadium is expected to serve as one of the primary Western host venues, positioned near Jeddah's expanding urban footprint and major transport corridors. And unlike the desert-bound Riyadh projects, this one has to contend with something very different: humidity, salt air, and coastal wind patterns. That environmental context shapes the engineering decisions immediately, where inland stadiums focus heavily on solar heat management and sand control. A Red Sea venue must prioritize corrosion resistance, structural steel selection, protective coatings, fastener systems, and long-term maintenance planning all become more aggressive when you're building near saltwater. This kind of coastal construction brings different labor demands, from marine corrosion specialists to climate modeling engineers designing airflow for spectator comfort. It's a different workforce profile than desert builds. Concept visuals suggest a sweeping layered exterior facade inspired by the movement of waves. But underneath that architecture sits a much more practical goal: ventilation. Open-air stadiums in coastal climates can take advantage of natural airflow if the bowl geometry is designed correctly. That means computational fluid dynamics modeling to understand how prevailing sea breezes move through the structure. It means shaping the upper tiers and canopy to encourage air circulation rather than trap heat. In a World Cup environment, thermal comfort isn't optional, it's operational. Roshn Stadium is also being designed as part of a broader residential and commercial development, aligning with Saudi Arabia's push to create long-term urban districts rather than isolated event venues. And that's where its strategic value comes into focus. A stadium in Jeddah isn't just about hosting matches, it's about distributing the tournament footprint beyond Riyadh. It ties into King Abdulaziz International Airport. It connects to coastal tourism infrastructure. It anchors development on the western side of the country. From a broadcast standpoint, it also delivers something visually distinct. Desert backdrops feel very different from coastal skylines. A Red Sea venue introduces contrast into the tournament narrative. That matters when you're hosting a global event watched by billions. But like the other two contenders, Roshn Stadium will ultimately be judged by what happens after 2034. Can it sustain regular club use? Can it support concerts and international events? Can the surrounding district generate year-round traffic? Because the most important World Cup stadiums aren't the ones that look the best in renderings. They're the ones that will still make sense 20 years later. Because the 2034 World Cup isn't really about 3 stadiums. It's about what those stadiums represent. Saudi Arabia isn't just hosting a tournament, it's using the tournament as a deadline, a forcing function. a moment that accelerates projects that were already part of a much larger national transformation plan. And stadiums are the most visible symbols of that shift. Qiddiya Coast Stadium represents spectacle, a venue embedded into a larger entertainment ecosystem designed to merge sport with tourism, theme parks, and destination development. It's not just a stadium, it's a centerpiece. Mohammed Bin Salman Stadium represents scale and ambition, elevation, engineering complexity. A structure built on a plateau overlooking Riyadh, designed to be seen from miles away. It signals that the country wants architectural icons, not just functional venues. Roshn Stadium represents integration, a Western anchor in Jeddah tied to housing development, transport upgrades, and coastal expansion. It's less about spectacle and more about embedding a stadium into long-term urban growth. Each one tells a slightly different story: tourism and entertainment, national identity and symbolism, urban expansion and regional balance. And that's important because hosting a World Cup isn't about building arenas. It's about proving that the surrounding systems can handle global demand. Airports must scale, high-speed rail and metro lines must connect cities, hotels must absorb surges in visitors, energy, water, and digital infrastructure must operate without failure. The tournament becomes a stress test for the entire country's infrastructure network. The stadiums are simply the most visible part of that network. But there's also tension built into this strategy. Mega sporting events have a long history of producing white elephants, oversized venues that struggle with post-tournament usage, maintenance costs that outlast the economic boost, infrastructure that peaks for 1 month and then declines. So, the real long-term question isn't whether these stadiums can be completed, it's whether they can sustain relevance decades after 2034. Can Qiddiya generate year-round foot traffic strong enough to justify its scale? Can the Riyadh Plateau Stadium transition from global spectacle to consistent domestic use? Can Roshn Stadium anchor a thriving district rather than stand as an isolated landmark? I guess we will find out. But when you strip away the renderings and the hype, the 2034 World Cup becomes something much bigger than a tournament. It becomes a deadline for transformation. 3 stadiums, 3 very different philosophies. Qiddiya Coast is about spectacle and tourism, a stadium embedded inside an entertainment ecosystem, designed to attract global visitors long after the final whistle. Mohammed Bin Salman Stadium is about elevation and symbolism, a dramatic architectural statement overlooking Riyadh, built to project confidence and ambition. Roshn Stadium is about integration, a venue woven into housing, transit, and long-term urban expansion along the Red Sea. All 3 are bold, all 3 are expensive, and all 3 carry risk. But what do you think? Which of these 3 stadiums was your favorite? And would you make the trip in 2034 to watch the World Cup and these architectural marvels? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoy deep dives into the mega projects shaping the future of cities, sports, and global events, make sure to hit the subscribe button.